Hey, what's up guys? In this video, I'll show you exactly how to use focus stacking in Photoshop right after this. Hey, what's up guys, and welcome into the video. On this channel, we talk landscape photography, how you can shoot better photographs, taking you out into the field, showing you post-processing techniques like this video, and gear reviews. So if you're interested and you've never been here before, consider subscribing below. In this video, we're going over focus stacking in Photoshop. We're going to be creating this photograph right here on your screen through the processes of focus stacking using multiple different images shot with different focal distance from the lens. Now, a lot of people use this process for macro photography specifically, and it's a really good technique to use for macros because you can stack these focuses and shoot at different focal distance throughout the frame. But this can also be a really good technique to use for landscape photography. Say if you're shooting something at great distances with either a wide angle or a telephoto, something like a 70-200 lens, you can stack focuses together. Like if you have trees in a forest and a waterfall in a background, you can take different focal distance for the trees and then for the waterfall and stack these focuses together to make sure that you have tack sharp focus throughout the entire photograph and create a stunning landscape photo. But right now we're gonna go right onto the screen so you can see how you can achieve focus stacking in Photoshop using the techniques we're going over today. All right guys, so now that we're on the computer screen, we can see the photograph that we're starting with first. Now this is a series of photographs at different focal distance before we stack them together. So in this photograph, you can see that the focus is predominantly on the very front petals of this flower. And as we scroll through these photographs, you can see that the focus changes to different parts of the flower so we can be sure that everything is within tack sharp focus. So it goes from front to back, focusing on different parts of the flower. And we're gonna stack these focuses together and blend them in Photoshop. So we're in Lightroom right now. If you start in Lightroom, all you have to do is load these as layers into Photoshop, starting with your first image, which is this one right here. So we're gonna click on this one, and then we're gonna click on our final image, which is this one right here. So we're stacking 5 different photographs together. Now, if you don't use Lightroom, you can easily just load these as layers into Photoshop. But if you are using Lightroom, you bring these over as layers in Photoshop. So you're gonna select the first image in the sequence, hold down your Shift key and select the last one to select every photograph in the sequence. Then you right click and go to Edit In, Open as Layers in Photoshop. You don't go to Open in Photoshop, you go to Open as Layers. So these are automatically loaded into an image sequence as layers in Photoshop. All right, so now once all of the layers are loaded, you're gonna see them all over in your Layers panel on the right bottom corner of your screen, or if you have your Layers panel somewhere else, it's just going to be stuck in the Layers panel itself. And you can see all of the photographs that we brought over stacked into a layer sequence. Now, the first thing that I always like to do is make sure that these are lined up perfectly. So we're going to align these layers to make sure that in the focus stack, we don't have any weird edges that are off from the others. So we're just gonna align these layers together, and Photoshop is going to use this to find different hard edges and line these up perfectly for us. So we're just gonna go to Edit, Auto Align Layers. And the auto technique is probably the best one that I use. Photoshop does a really good job of finding these hard edges and aligning the layers. So we're just gonna click OK, and it's going to auto align these layers for us for the focus stack. Now, Photoshop and the focus stack process can be a little intimidating at first, but it's actually really simple to do. It's pretty much as simple as what we just did with auto aligning these layers. So next thing we're gonna do for the focus stack, we're just gonna go to Edit, and we're going to go to Auto Blend Layers. Now, when the Auto Blend Layers panel comes up, you wanna be sure that stack images is selected, not panorama. I also like to select seamless tones and colors and content aware fill transparent areas. The seamless tones and colors blends all the colors together that we're stacking, and then the content aware fill transparent areas are if there's any transparent areas after we've auto aligned these layers. Photoshop's gonna basically look for areas that are similar in colors, tones, edges, and auto fill those areas. Now, I don't think we're gonna have any of those because we've already auto aligned these layers, but I like to keep that checked just in case. And once we have stacked images selected and these two options selected, we're just gonna hit OK. And it's gonna start blending these layers together, and it's gonna find these focused areas and combine those, bringing them out in certain areas to create our finished photo product. So once the focus stack is completed, we can see a couple different changes. Number one, the most obvious being that we now have a perfectly in focus flower that we stack together with our different focal distance using the Photoshop focus stack technique. And we can zoom in just to be sure. We start with this front edge petal of the flower, and these first ones are a little bit out of focus, but I'm okay with that. I didn't get, this one right in focus when I was in the field shooting. I got the very edge of this front one in focus, and then we go back through. So we start with this one, we move down here to this petal, then we move over to this petal and the middle, and we're just checking to see if everything is within focus. And it looks like all the petals throughout are good and in focus. And then our main subject we want to make sure is tack sharp is the center bud of the flower itself. It looks like everything is in perfect focus thanks to the Photoshop merge. And then we have the panels, the layers panels has changed a little bit. These are layer masks that have been merged together with the Photoshop focus stack. And if you look at them, we can see the different areas that have been brought into focus in the photograph itself. So the different shades that are represented in this are the different parts of the photograph that Photoshop has masked together to bring out those focal distances to be sure that everything is within tack sharp focus. Basically now all you have to do is go to File, Save, and it's going to save this into your Lightroom catalog if you're using Lightroom, and it's going to come up in our Lightroom library, and we can just scroll to that real quick and find where it's put it in. So here's the photograph that we exported, and we can just double click on that, finish editing this photograph to make sure it's like perfectly the way we want it to be, increase the exposure a little bit, increase contrast, bring some highlights down, bring some shadows up, bring whites down, and then I like a little bit of black in here as well. So I'm actually gonna bring my blacks down to create a little bit more detail. I'm gonna bring up the clarity to bring out some detail as well and increase my vibrance and saturation just a little bit, just to bring out extra colors that we have. And those are just some basic overall edits that you can make to this photograph to make it pop and really bring out all the detail of this focus stack. So essentially that's how you focus stack an image using Photoshop. It's a very simple process. A lot of people get freaked out about Photoshop and all the buttons and different ways you can do things, but the focus stacking process is really simple as long as you have everything in different focal distances shot in the field, brought over as layers to Photoshop, and then aligned and stacked together using the Photoshop features that I showed you. So if you like this video, you found it helpful, and you want more Photoshop tutorials, go ahead and smash the thumbs up below, or consider subscribing to this channel because we come out with these videos all the time on how you can improve your photography using different techniques.